Good evening, good afternoon. I think I am live. I think you can hear me and you can see me. If that is the case, or if that is not the case, can you confirm that for me, that you can hear me and you can see me, please? And as you noticed, we have still this funny popcorn sound and it hasn't been fixed. So I'm just gonna call Jay from Skype, and Jay is gonna help us to look at the Islamic coins. Couple of weeks ago we went to British Museum with Jay, and then we kind of looked at the looked at the exhibition where British Museum put together the history of Islam. And in that short video, Jay talked about Islamic coins, and I have received a couple of emails. People wanted it to be unpacked. So Jay is kindly agreed to join us in another live stream to help us to do so. So I'm just gonna call Jay, and by the grace of God, hopefully everything will work well. Of course, if Jay is there. Last time when I called him, he wasn't there.
Hello, Hatun.
Hello Jay, peace of Christ be with you. How are you?
I'm doing fine, but you look awfully tired.
Because I am old. I'm getting old, Jay. You will
You're
never understand.
I'm old.
You will never
I'm old.
understand. You
Gray
never
hair.
get
You have
old.
no reason to be tired.
Um, I'm doing okay. I just need my makeup, and I need to get younger.
I don't think you even know what makeup is.
How are you, Jay?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for inviting me.
Can I get a quick permission from you to be recorded on this live stream?
Yes, fine, no problem.
Thank you. And those of you who are joining us in the chat, topic of tonight is the Islamic coins. Can I gently encourage you to please keep the conversations around the topic so everyone can benefit, and we wouldn't waste Jay's time because he's like pretty busy. But what I'm gonna do is, I noticed we haven't listened worship songs for a while. Actually, no, I don't know how to do that now. Anyway, nothing. I'm doing nothing. Jay, can you tell us how have you been since last week? What have you been up to?
I have been in academic isolation. I am in a really nice little cabin near the mountains. I guess I'd call it a cabin, but I'm completely alone, and that's for a reason. I'm writing a book, and I'm trying to get the book finished. And the best way to do that is to be in isolation, and that I have another 2 or 3 days before I leave this place. So it's been great to. I think we had a live stream last week, and I had another one on Fander Films with Fadi Al Fadi on Saturday last Saturday. So this has been the third live stream I've done while I've been in isolation. Now I'm back, and we're going to talk about this topic. I think the topic is on to concerning coins.
Yeah, and so within 3-4 days, will you be finishing the book, or you are just kicked out from the place you are staying?
No, I don't get kicked out. I've just decided that this is. I've got to get back to my wife. I've got to get back to my family. My son and his girlfriend are over from England, and they're here for Christmas. I've got to get home so that I can start spending some time with my family and Christmas.
And okay, do you want to tell us a little bit about what are the books you are writing, or? What are the
Yeah, this
titles of the
book,
books?
this first book, I'm going through all the frequently asked questions, the FAQs, and how to answer them. People have been saying when the videos are up there, we need something written down. So I'm taking all that I have been doing the last year. If you go up on Fander Films, I did about a sequence of about 40 different FAQs. What are the questions that are being thrown at us? How to answer them quickly and concisely. The three C's. You know the three C's, Hatun. The quick, concise, yet comprehensive. Those are the three C's. And so I'm putting them into a book because people can't look at videos all the time. So that's what I'm doing at this period. Now, the next one, of course, will be then the internal critique of the Quran, looking at all the internal problems with this book here. The one that I'm also working on is the external critique of the Quran. That's the historical problems. I've been doing that with you. I've been doing that with Al-Fadi. That's looking at the 12 areas. There's 12 areas that I'm now confronting. Some of them we introduced at Kensington Temple, KT, in September when I was back in England. And then the other books that I'm writing on are looking at the scientific problems with the Quran, and then moving on into the polemics. What are the best questions to ask Muslims? What are the questions that we need to go that direction rather than always coming towards us? So those are the 5 books that I'm working on at the moment.
I think the last book is gonna be very easy.
The last one, the polemics?
Yeah, because
Yes.
any question about Islam you ask Muslims, they have no answer. So your book should be just in every page, just ask a question.
Very, very, very good. It's what you're saying. No, what I'm not just going to put the question out there. I'm going to put the ask, why is it, and what's the background for the question, and what are the responses you're going to get, and how to then deal with those questions,
Yeah,
those responses.
I was just joking. Yes. Okay. So
You're going to use it. I'm going to use it. These are the areas that people have asked me to do.
Okay. So okay. Just reminding those of you who are watching, tonight's topic is Islamic coins, the ones we looked at British Museum. So Jay is just gonna go ahead and unpack that for us. I think you would want me to share some pictures, Jay.
Yeah, I think why don't we start out? And let's get some background as to why we're even doing this talk today. What's the purpose of the coins? The purpose of the coins has an awful lot to do with how did Islam really begin, and what is it that the British Museum is not aware of, and which most Western scholars are not aware of. One of the things we have found out with a lot of Western scholars, and it's no discredit to them, they're not aware of what exactly how is some of the real problems with the historical antecedents to Islam, and not only historical antecedents, but the narrative, the classical narrative that they are using. And we noticed that when I was there in September at the British Museum. Those of you who are in London, go to the British Museum, look at the 2 new galleries that they put up. Those 2 new galleries are dedicated to the greatness of Islam. And it's really interesting, and we brought this out in our video that we did earlier, that these 2 galleries are dedicated to Islam. There are no galleries dedicated to Christianity. There are no galleries that I know that are in the British Museum that are dedicated to Hinduism or Buddhism or any other religion. It's only these 2 galleries dedicated to Islam. Why in the world is Islam get this preferential treatment? And more than that, if they're going to get this kind of treatment, why in the world are they using that classical narrative? And the answer is very clear. They don't have any other narrative but that. And it's the only ones that Muslims will allow them to use. But when we went into those galleries, almost the first things we looked at were these coins. And as soon as you showed me those coins, Hatun, and I don't know if you knew what you were looking at or if you were aware of the problems. Were you aware of it before you introduced them to me?
Yes, I was aware of the dates.
Okay, and what as soon as we looked at the coins, now let's put that picture up there. I saw you just had it up there. Put it back up there again. Just look at those coins, and these are the coins they have on display, and they're coins that are, according to their viewpoint, these are coins that they consider to be symptomatic of what the history of what was happening with Islam. What they don't know is they didn't look at the coins very carefully. Look at the back row. Do you have the coins up there yet?
Yes, coins are on the screen.
Okay, look at the back row, and the first 2 in the back, the first silver ones in the back are not. I had listed 1 and 2. Those are Sassanian coins. They're Zoroastrian coins. Those are not really germane to our discussion today. The only reason they're there is because the Sassanian Empire predated Islam, and the Sassanian Empire existed up until the 7th century itself. So those coins are Zoroastrian, not really part of our discussion. The next 2, 3, 4 are also Sassanian. We do know that the Sassanians were destroyed by the Arabs, so that is significant. So these would be the last coins that existed before the Arabs came and took down that empire that existed in what is today Iran and Iraq. Now,
Persian Empire.
the one on the far right, number 5, that is important, but it's in the wrong sequence, so I'm going to come back to it. So let's don't even look at it because that's an 8th century coin. And I don't know, I mean, it's interesting because in the description that they have at on the bottom, they do mention this 8th century. Then I don't understand why they put it at the back there, because that should be at the very end of all of these coins, because then when we come down to the front row, look at the 2 gold coins on the front row. Those are hugely significant, and the British Museum doesn't seem to understand their significance, nor do they understand the significance of the ones in the middle. So the front row, you have 2 on the left. Those are number 1 and 2. Those are Byzantine drachmas. In the middle are the number 3 and 4 are Abd al-Malik's image. Those are the coins from Abd al-Malik. That's very important. We're going to unpack that. And then the 2 on the right in the front row, the two other gold coins are also later. They're after, well, no, they're not. They're also Abd al-Malik, but they don't say Abd al-Malik. And those who've been coined, they would have been introduced around 692. So on the 2 on the left are prior to 661. These would be Byzantine drachmas. Those are earlier than Islam. The ones in the middle are between 685 and 692. 685 and 692, those are the 2 black ones, the 2 smaller coins, the black ones in the middle. And then the 2 on the right are hugely significant. And this is why I want to talk about it, because those should not be those coins. Those coins say an awful lot. And none of those who put the display together in the British Museum are aware of what they were putting together. And that's why you called me to go and unpack it. So let's look now at those 2 on the left, and then we're going to introduce the 2 in the middle, and then we're going to introduce the 2 on the right. And let's follow that sequence. So let's start. If you put up the next image, which would be the Byzantine drachma. Let's take a look at the Byzantine drachma, if you could put that up.
Okay, just while I find that picture, am I right to understand those coins we looked, none of them has anything to do with man called Muhammad?
Nothing. Now, why is that significant?
I would expect
if he is the greatest of all prophets, if he is the creator of Islam, if he is the one that receives the Quran, if he is the man living in Mecca that moves to Medina in 622, if he dies in 632, these are all post that time. These should be the earliest Muslim coins. Well, except for the first 2. Before we get to that, let's still talk with the drachmas before we get into that discussion, okay, Hatun? So let's look at the drachma. That's the Byzantine drachma, which is slide number 12.
Yes, just a moment. I just couldn't find the picture, so I need to put that again.
Okay. Now, while she's doing that, what I'm gonna be introducing to you, we need to understand why these drachmas are significant. The drachmas are a coin that was used both by the Byzantine, who were Christian, and also by the Sassanian, who were Zoroastrian.
Okay.
The Byzantines were in the north,
on the screen, Jay.
Sassanians were in the east. You got them up there? I can't see from what I'm looking at. I'm having to assume you've got them up there.
It's gonna come. So when we speak, people get to hear us approximately 20 seconds after we speak. Therefore, you will seeing the picture within 20 seconds. And sometimes 20 seconds can be seen very long time. Yeah.
There we've got the drachma. I see them up now. I've got another computer over here that I've got on silence so that I can see what you're putting up. Let's take a look at those drachmas. Now, when you look at those drachmas, you can see, look at the one on the left, the first one on the left. All right, can you see the one on the left?
Yeah.
You notice there's 3 men in that. In the front is the emperor. That's the emperor. That would be the Byzantine emperor. He's in the middle there, and he's holding an orb in his hand. And if you look at it carefully, you will see that the orb has a cross above it, proving that he's a Christian. Okay, so he's a Christian. Then on both sides of him are 2 retainers. Can you see the 2 retainers? Yeah. Those are Byzantine retainers. All right. Hugely significant. So that is the drachma that was used all over the world at that time. On the back side, the coin on the right is the back side. So one is the front, the other is the back of the same coin. Front side, you have the emperor with two retainers, and they have an orb in their hands with a cross, proving that they are Christians, that they are Byzantines. The back side then has a pedestal with a Byzantine cross. That's the Byzantine cross. Again, the cross of Jesus Christ, proving that they're Christian. Hugely significant. Now, those coins were used both in the Byzantine world, which were really the financial capital, the financial power of its day. That's why they were the superpower, the financial superpower, and that's why anybody that wanted to trade with the Byzantine had to use those coins, the drachmas, with the clearly a Christian significance. Okay?
Yep.
Now I want you to show you the next set of coins, which are the Sufyani dirham. Sufyani dirham, which is slide number 13. Well, as she's bringing it up, you're going to see that it's very much the same coin. It looks pretty much just like the coins of the drachmas that we just looked at. However, there's something hugely different, and you're going to see this as soon as she gets it up there. When you look, and you can tell me when you have them up there so I can start talking about it.
Yes, it's up there, Jay.
Okay, now let's look at the second set of coins. Again, looks like the exact same coin, right? Until you look at it very carefully. Look at it very carefully. I see you're bringing it up larger. If you can just enlarge it so it covers the whole screen. Look at the left side, which is the front side. Notice that you still have it should be an emperor, but it's no longer an emperor, it's a caliph. You notice he has a turban on his head. What's more, he has the orb, but the cross has been taken off. And can you see that? There's no cross above the orb. So this is distinctly a statement they're making here. This is the caliph, the Sufyani caliph. Who are the Sufyanis? They are the first family of what we know as the Umayyad Caliphate. The Caliphate, the Umayyad Caliphate, comes to power in 661 at the Battle of Siffin when Muawiyah, who is the first of the Umayyad Caliphates, the first of the Sufyani family, he destroys Ali at the Battle of Siffin, kills Ali, takes over control, becomes the caliph, and he is the first beginning of the first supposedly Islamic empire. Am I correct? This is the beginning of the first great Islamic empire. Now, be careful, be careful. Muslims will say, no, there were 4 other caliphs that came before him. That's true. According to them, there are 4 other caliphs that come before him. You have Abu Bakr, who comes from 632 to 634. You have Umar, who comes from 634 to 644. You have Uthman, who reigned from 644 to 656. And then you have Ali, who reigned from 656 to 661. 661, Ali is killed. The 4 rightly guided caliphs are then destroyed, and the Sufyanis, who are a family within the Umayyad dynasty, take over power. So these coins are their coins. They introduced these coins. Notice how similar they are to the drachmas.
Yeah.
They're almost exactly the same. Why would they do that, Hatun?
They're just identifying themselves.
True, yeah. They're identifying themselves. These are the new men on town. But hold on a minute. Are Muslims allowed to use images?
If they follow Sahih Bukhari, no.
So you're saying if they follow Sahih Bukhari. But I've been told that this is something that comes all the way time from Muhammad. It is Muhammad that would allow anybody to use images. Am I correct? And it's Sahih Bukhari who tells us this.
But it looks like, because Sahih Bukhari was put together in 870, so people in 600s were not aware of what Muhammad said if they are using images.
Unless, of course, this was not a problem for Arabs. And more of that, let's then get back to why do they have those images of the caliph, which would be Muawiyah, and his 2 retainers on the coin? Why are those images up there? There are 2 reasons. One is what you've already intimated. Back there in the 7th century, they didn't have TV, they didn't have newspapers, they did not have any of the media outlets that we use today. They didn't have internet or anything else to pretty much tell the world who they are. They had to use coins. Coins were the means by which you now announce that you are now in power. You announce yourself, and what you do is you put your image on your coin to announce who you are. But if you are the new people in town, if you are the new ones, and in order for you then to be able to trade with your partners, your Byzantines and the Sassanians, because you have to have trade with the Byzantines because they're the big superpower, you're going to have to use coins that are similar to what they already know. And that's why the dirham is created. It's created by the Umayyads, the Sufyani family, to be able to trade with the Byzantines. So they have to use a coin that looks very similar. And that's why they look so similar, these two coins. But in order for them to make sure that they show who they are, they're very clearly not Christians. They don't want to be identified as Christians. So that's why when they introduce their image of their caliph, they take off the cross from the orb. Right? So
Yeah.
no, these are you cannot mistake the fact that they're Christians. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so you cannot mistake.
I just put the two pictures together so that people can see them like next to each other. So three men
Good.
are together, so you can see their head and also their yeah.
So the crown is taken off the emperor,
Yeah.
and the what do you call it?
Turban.
The topi is put on to the caliphs. There's the change there. And then the orb is exactly the same. Everything else is exactly the same, so that they're basically using the same coinage so that people can still trade back and forth, except that the cross is taken off the orb. And then on the backside, look at the backside. Now look at that. Look at the Sufyani one real carefully and take a look and see what you see. You still see the pedestal there, and you still see the pole sticking straight up.
Yeah.
But the cross piece has been taken off, so there's no longer a cross. That's hugely important. You can see that there was a cross there. There's no longer the Byzantine cross. They've taken the cross piece off, so no one can mistake that this is a cross or a crucifixion or a person of Jesus on the cross. That's why they have to have the same coin. They have to have something that looks pretty much like it, but they take off the cross piece. That's in 661. That's why the date is hugely significant. So from 661 then, these coins are used. They don't call it the drachma. They give their own name. And the dirham is the equivalent to the drachma as far as currency is concerned. It's the Arab name for drachma. It's the Arab dirham. Hold that. I'm going to come back to that later on about something else I'm going to say. But let's take that under our belt and just to understand that, okay? So that's introduced in 661. The Umayyads are the ones who, where do they live? They will live way up in Damascus, so their trade is with the Byzantines. They've already destroyed now the Sassanid Empire. They now control the Sassanid Empire. They are now moving up. They have already moved. They're starting to move across North Africa. They're starting to move towards Andalusia, which is Spain today. And their biggest partners in trade would be the Byzantines. But they're not going any further north because the Byzantines are too powerful. They're also going east. They've already taken over and destroyed the Sassanids, and they're moving east, and they're going to finally move all the way up to the east, all the way over towards India, or in your case, this way, all the way towards India. So from Andalusia, this way, from Andalusia, Spain, up to India over here, that's that whole swath of land that they're going to be controlling, which means they also control the trade. That's why they need their images. That's why they need their coins. That's why they need to show who they are. Now, if they are truly Muslims, why wouldn't they have Muhammad's image there?
Or
Since
name
image
of
doesn't
Allah.
a problem. Go ahead.
Or name of Allah.
Or even the name of Allah. Or the Shahada. There's only one God but God.
Yeah.
Why don't they have that? Why do they have images when we know that no Muslim is allowed to have any image? This isn't idolatry. That's why Muslims, even today, they destroy any image. When you go to Turkey, your country, when you go to Turkey and you look at all of the churches there, if you look at many of the churches, in fact, we even saw this there in the British Museum. We showed one terracotta that was from Turkey, a beautiful mosaic, and all the faces had been scratched out.
Yeah.
All the faces had been scratched out, and you can see this all over Turkey. And I've been to Turkey. I have seen this in almost all the churches, in almost where we have a picture of Jesus Christ, his face is scratched out. We have a picture of the apostles, their faces are scratched out. Even the birds. Remember the birds' faces were scratched out in the one we looked at.
Oh, well, you can't do much about it, Jay, if heavenly beings, angels, are afraid of the pictures.
Well, then why weren't they afraid of
people
the
have to
pictures in 661?
people have to get rid of the faces. But as I
Then
said, in the 7th century, probably people who were more close to Muhammad, as they were not aware of it, since Bukhari came approximately 250 years after Muhammad.
I would say it's earlier than Bukhari. I would say that this is something that was introduced quite a bit earlier. But hold on a minute. We'll get to that, okay? Nonetheless, we know then by 661, there is no reference to Muhammad. There is no image of Muhammad. There's just this retainers, these caliphal retainers, in this case, Muawiyah, introduced in 661. And then if you look at the numismatic section of the British Museum, you will see in the numismatic section that all the coins for every one of the caliphs that come after to have the image of that caliph. All right?
Yeah.
Up until 680, when Marwan is from a different family within the Umayyad Caliphate, he then takes over, destroys the Sufyanis, and takes over the Caliphate. His image is on his coin. And then his son, Abdul Malik. Now, Abdul Malik is enormously significant because Abdul Malik then comes to power in 685. His father dies. He takes over power. 5 years. Marwan only ruled for 5 years. He dies in 685. Abdul Malik comes to power. And what does he do? Well, like every other caliph before him, he mints his new coins. So let's look at those coins. Those are the second. This is the third set of coins I want to put up. And these are the coins. This is the coin with Abdul Malik's image on it. And he has a huge, big sword. So this is the coin that now shows that even Abdul Malik is falling into the same pattern of those that predecessed him. The predecessors all did the same thing. Why would not Abdul Malik do the same thing? And he does. So on the dirham that he coins and mints when he comes to power in 685, if you're going to put that, you can see it there. There it is. There is Abdul Malik on the left. That's the front side of the coin.
And we
On the
can
back
see,
side of the coin,
Islam is the religion of peace, and then we can see big sword he's wearing on the coin.
Now, why is that significant, Hatun?
Because Islam is the religion of peace, Jay.
Says tongue cheat facetiously. You never can take anything Hatun says as face value. This is her sense of humor, and this is okay. We understand it because we can see that she's laughing at her jokes, and we love to laugh along with her. God bless you, Hatun. That's correct. So there you can see the big sword, the big man with the big sword, and that's him introducing. He is now the new ruler. So that's 685. Take a look at the backside. You notice it's exactly like all the predecessors. You can see the pedestal there. You can see the pole, and the crosspiece has been taken off, just like the ones from 661. On up to 670, 680, up until 685. So from 685 to 691, this is the coin that is now introduced for the dirham, which is they use then to have trade with the Byzantines in the north, who are using the drachmas. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Now here's where the real mud hits the fan. Let's look at the next coin. And this is the one that they have on display there at the British Museum. Let's look at Abdul Malik's new coin, because in 692 he introduces a completely new coin.
So what happened to his sword, Jay?
It's gone. His image is gone. The pedestal is gone. So the pole is gone. The crosspiece is gone.
Islam become the religion of peace, thanks to Abdul Malik.
So Abdul Malik now eradicates the images, and he introduces this coin. This is in 692. Take a look at it. Now, that one is on display there at the British Museum, but they never made any significant. No one ever said it. There's nothing written at the bottom to say why that is significant. Now, anybody who can read Arabic can see what that is. Look what's on the front side and look what's on the back side. But before we say what's on the front and the back side, let's back up a little bit. I want to back up and help you understand why this is significant. To understand why this is significant, Hatun, we need to go back to 640s, 650s. If Muhammad died in 632, let's just take that on. Let's don't sit there and try to dispute that. I would suggest that he didn't die in 632 because we do have references to him living even later than that. Nonetheless, by within 10 to 15 years, Abu Bakr and Umar have now moved out of just Damascus, and of Medina, and they've now taken over Basra, Baghdad, Damascus, Jerusalem, and Cairo. So by 649, let's say 650, so within 20 years of Muhammad's death, the five great cities of the Levant are now under their control. Basra, Baghdad, which are today in Iraq, Damascus, which is in Syria, Jerusalem, which is in Israel, and Cairo, which is in Egypt. Those are the five great cities. They are the great cities of trade. They are the great cities of the Levant. They are the master lodes. They have been taken over by these Arabs. These Arabs who are living way up in Damascus, much, much too far north. Why are they not living down in Medina? If this is what we've been told, that they're living in Medina. According to the Islamic traditions written by al-Bukhari and all the others, Ibn Hisham writing about the biography, they're way down in Medina. They're not in Medina. Their empire's way up in Damascus. What's more, they're now moving out, and as they, especially Umar, from 634 to 644, he moves out right across North Africa. He is the one that really expands the empire. This continues on under Uthman, under Ali, and this continues on under the Sufyani family. By the time Abdul Malik comes to power now, in 685, from Spain to India is now under his control, which is the largest area of any empire of that time. This is by far the largest empire of that time. Spain to India, huge empire. But here's a problem. Here's a difficulty, Hatun. They are Arabs, but they don't have any identity. There is no Arab identity. There's nothing to show that they are unique. They have all this expanse of land. They have now have really controlled the Byzantines, have destroyed the Sassanians, and now they control all of the Sassanid area. They control much of the Byzantine southern reaches of the Byzantine Empire. That's all North Africa, all the way to Spain. They're going to start moving up into France. By 732, they're stopped there at the Battle of Tours by Charles Martel. But before they do that, 685, now these Arabs have been in power for 40 years. Am I correct?
Approximately, yeah.
About 40 years, because now we're 685.
Yeah, 630 from 632.
640s is when they took over the five major cities. Now they moved out, and now they have this huge swath of land. They see themselves as a descendants of Abraham. They've always seen themselves. That's two of the names they give to themselves are Hagarines and Ishmaelites. Hagar, the slave of Sarah, who was given to Abraham to have Ishmael, her son Ishmael, and from his progeny are the Ishmaelites. And these Arabs call themselves Hagarines. They call themselves Ishmaelites. So they see themselves as cousins to the Byzantines, and as cousin Christians, and as cousins to the Jews, up back to Abraham. Now, of course, the Jews and the Christians go through Isaac. The Arabs, who used to be the Nabateans, go through Ishmael. Yeah. Here's the problem. Here's the problem. The Arabs don't have any prophetic line. The Jews and Christians do. All the prophets come in the line of Isaac. No prophet comes in the line of Ishmael, right?
Yeah, according to, yeah.
The Jews and the Christians have a scripture. The Arabs have no scripture. They are the unscriptured people. This is in chapter 62, verse 2 of the Quran, in chapter 7, verse 157 of the Quran, which is interesting because Umayyun, the word Umayyun, if you ask Al-Fadi or anybody who knows Arabic, Umayyun does not mean illiterate, it means unscriptured. It is a better translation for Umayyun is unscriptured. These are the unscriptured people. These are the ones who don't have a prophetic line. They don't have an identity like the Christians and Jews. And yet the Christians and Jews are the ones that they're battling with. They're the ones that are in competition with. They are in Jerusalem. They have their headquarters in Jerusalem. Though they're up in Constantinople, their sanctuary, the Church of the Sepulchre, is down in Jerusalem. And their pilgrimages is always down to Jerusalem from all over the Byzantine world. You see the difficulty. How are you going to create this identity? How are you going to create your own scripture? And how are you going to create your own prophet? How are you going to get your own prophetic line? And how are you going to then have a revelation that is uniquely yours? Well, this is a problem that Abdul Malik has. And remember, Abdul Malik is the greatest of the Umayyad Caliphate. He is the greatest of the caliphs. He is now at the height of this is the height of the Umayyad Caliphate. This is where they're at the strongest. This is where they have the most amount of land. This is where they are at their most wealthy. And he wants to create this identity. So what do you do in order to create that identity? Well, the first thing you do is you go to where the Byzantines have their sanctuary and you build a large building and you slap it slap back in the middle of Jerusalem, known as the Dome of the Rock. And he does that in 691. He builds that enormous structure there in 691. Now, take a look and see where it's situated. It's up on the hill overlooking down towards the Church of the Sepulchre, which is where the pilgrimages that the Byzantines come to. The Christians all came there. And of course, the Jews see it as their holy city. So both the Jews and Christians look at Jerusalem as their holy city. But you're not living in Jerusalem. You're living way up in Damascus. That's why Abdul Malik builds this building. It's the largest building of its day. It's the largest structure of its day. It's a statement. It's a very powerful statement saying, we are the new people on the block. We are the new, basically, we are now in charge of everybody. And more than that, you do something in that building. First of all and foremost, we now know from looking at Dan Gibson's material that we've already discussed before, that building is not facing Mecca. That's significant. It's facing what?
It's between Petra and Jerusalem.
No, it's facing directly to Petra.
Are you talking about this? I think it's between Petra and Jerusalem. It's not.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Okay.
Take a look and go look at Dan Gibson's pictures again. The Dome of the Rock, the entire citadel, the Dome of the Chain. Remember the Dome of the Chain? Remember that one that's next to it? That small mosque that's next to it?
Yeah.
Remember, the Dome of the Chain is a mosque. The Dome of the Rock is not a mosque. Remember the live stream that you had with Dan Gibson about 2 weeks ago?
Yes, I'm just trying to find my picture, Jay.
Remember, he said this. He was very clear on this, and this is something that most people didn't pick up on. You need to pick up on these things. And those of you who listened to that, what Hatun did 2 weeks ago with Dan Gibson was enormously significant. Go and look at that video again. It's there on DCCI. It's Dan Gibson, and what Dan Gibson did in just about an hour and a half, he brought out some brand new material that I even haven't heard of before, and one of them is this, what he's talking about. Look at the Dome of the Rock, and you will see the entire citadel, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is there in the south corner, the south wall of the Dome of the Rock, all that citadel, the Dome of the Rock, and the Dome of the Chain, which is a little mosque that sits right next to it on the right side of it. They are all facing directly towards Petra, not in between. They're facing towards Petra. Can't be in between Jerusalem because they're in Jerusalem. So they're facing directly towards Petra. Hugely significant because for the Umayyads, Petra was their sanctuary. Petra has always been their sanctuary. For the Umayyads, remember, for the Umayyads. So that's the first thing he does. He builds this enormous building. What's interesting, he uses Christian architects to not only design it, but then Christian workers to build it. Almost like he's thumbing his nose at Christianity. Enormous building. You can still see it today. When you go to Jerusalem, it stands out with that beautiful golden dome. Are you still looking for a picture?
Yeah, I find the picture. Sorry, that's Damascus Mosque.
I'll keep talking while you look for the picture.
Sorry.
I'll keep talking. So here they built this beautiful building. Now, if you want a picture, I don't have it on the PowerPoint that I sent you because I only give. If you want to look at it, in fact, if you go up to
I do have them. But I do have them. I've got like
slide number 5 on that PowerPoint that I sent you. Look at slide number 5. I've got it right there.
I do have them, but in that slide, I've got like 281 pictures. So that it was okay.
Yeah. 5 of the PowerPoint that I sent last night. Anyhow, let's keep going. So when you look at that, when you look at the Dome of the Rock, when you look at Al-Aqsa Mosque, and when you look at the Dome of the Chain, all three of them, in fact, the entire citadel there in Jerusalem, all three of them are facing directly towards Petra. And that's hugely significant. But the dome of the train chain it helps us. That just helps us to know where the Qibla is. That's the Qibla we're talking about. So you build this enormous structure, and then you build. Now, remember, that structure has been destroyed and rebuilt 11 times. So we don't have the original part of that building, except for the two ambulatories. Now, can you go up to that slide that I have of the ambulatories on my PowerPoint that I gave you? Number 7 and slide number 8.
I don't know how to share the PowerPoints, Jay.
Okay, that's all right. Okay. For those people who are able to go up on our power, and we'll have to do this another time when we actually do unpack this part of it. This is not really what we were planning to do. We weren't planning to do this part, so don't worry about it. I'll just explain. I'll explain to this so people can understand. When you look at the Dome of the Rock, the only original part of the Dome of the Rock that still exists today are what we call the inner and outer ambulatories. These are the circular octagonal arches that surround the rock itself. And there's an inner one and there's an outer one. And on those inner and outer ones, those are the only part that were originally built in 691 by Abd al-Malik. Now, on those ambulatories are inscriptions written in Arabic, and you need to look at those inscriptions. There you go. There you've got it right there. So you can see it now. Take a look at that. If you look on the left side and look on the right, there you see the two. Look where the two green arrows are pointing to. Those two green arrows are pointing to the inner and outer ambulatory. Now let's go to the next slide after that. If you can put the next slide up. Just hit it with your cursor. Because the next slide then shows those inscriptions. On those inscriptions, which is the only original part, on those inscriptions are Arabic. But what are they saying? Now, when you ask a Muslim why the Dome of the Rock is important, what its significance is, they'll say it is the third most holy shrine in Islam. And the reason why it's significant is because this is where Muhammad was woken up in the middle of the night, and he was told by the angel Gabriel to get on the back of the winged horse called the Burak, and he flew from Mecca. This is supposedly happened in 621. Before he moved to Medina, he was still living in Mecca. He was told to get on the back of this winged horse called the Burak, and he flies from Mecca all the way up to Jerusalem. Then at Jerusalem, he then goes up to the seven heavens and meets Allah, and Allah tells him to pray 50 times a day. He comes down to the fifth heaven, this is known as the Miraj, and he comes down to the fifth heaven, and Moses says, how many prayers did you do? And he says, I did 50. He says, no, get it down. So he bounces back and forth between the seventh and the fifth heaven and gets it down from 50 to 45 to 30 to 15, 10, down to 5 prayers. And Moses, okay, that's enough. Go on back down to earth. He comes back down to Jerusalem and flies on back down to Mecca. That is known as the Mi'raj, and that's why the Dome of the Rock was built, according to what Muslims tell us today. According to Al-Bukhari, every Muslim that you ask today, why was the Dome of the Rock built? It was built because of that event. The Miraj, Muhammad going up to the seven heavens, flying on the winged horse called the Burak. Look and see if any of these inscriptions talk about that. Do they, Hatun?
No, they don't.
They don't say a thing about the Burak. They don't say a thing about Muhammad going up to Jerusalem. They don't say a thing about going up to the seven heavens. They say nothing about Moses or about the 5 prayers. None of this is on those inscriptions. And those inscriptions were created in 691. Those inscriptions are Quranic. They are Quranic. But they say nothing about the Miraj. So what do they say? Well, let's take a look at them again. Look at them carefully. And you will see that there are Quranic verses. If you look at them, you will see, and I've got them on slide number 9, if you want to put slide number 9 up. Slide number 9 shows 3 of the major inscriptions that are up there. Chapter 4, verse 171 of the Quran. O people of the scriptures, do not exaggerate in your religion, nor utter aught concerning Allah, save the truth. The Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, was only a messenger of Allah. This is slide number 9. There you go. And his word, which he conveyed unto Mary, and a spirit from him. So believe in Allah and his messengers, and say not 3. Cease. It is better for you. Allah is only one God. Far is it removed from his transcendent majesty that he should have a son. So here you have chapter 4, verse 171. That's nothing about the Miraj. That's nothing about Muhammad going up to the seven heavens. There's nothing about the Burak there. There's nothing about Allah or Moses conferring or anything about five prayers. It's all attacking Jesus Christ, is it not? It's attacking the Trinity. It's attacking Jesus' divinity. It's attacking also his sonship.
I think this is where Muslims learned soon after you question Islam. They attack Christian faith because that's what their early leaders do. They can't defend Islam. They can't explain Islam. So what do? They attack Christian faith. And this is the historical evidence for that.
And from the very beginning, if this is the earliest Quranic material we can find, 691. Now, I'm sure there are Muslims who are listening right now, and there are people who are listening say, hold on a minute, there are much earlier than 691. No, they're not. We're now showing and we're now proving that the earliest manuscript, the earliest fragments come much later. But what we do know is that this is the earliest dated fragment. This is the earliest Quranic because we can date it. Because this is the great thing about buildings. Whenever you have inscriptions on buildings, we know when the buildings were built. This was built in 691. Interestingly, this is attacking Jesus, his divinity, the Trinity, and his sonship. Then you get chapter 17, verse 111. Praise be to God, who hath not taken unto himself a son, and who hath no partner in the sovereignty, nor hath he any protecting friend through dependence. Who is that attacking again?
Christian faith.
It's attacking Jesus Christ. It's attacking his sonship, and it's attacking the fact that he hath no partners. That is attacking what we know as shirk, that Jesus cannot be God because God has no partners. That's from chapter 5, also chapter 5, verse 72. It says that as well. Let's go to the next one. And here's where this is probably the most important one. This is Surah 112. Hold on to that. Hugely significant. What does Surah 112 say? There is no God but God. He is one. He has no associate. Who's that attacking? He has no associate? Jesus again. Say he is God, the one God, the eternally besought of all. He begetteth not, nor was he begotten. Who is that attacking again? John 3:16.
Yeah.
Jesus, the begotten Son of God. Again, his sonship. God cannot have a son. He does not begetteth. That's attacking the Bible, specifically John 3:16. And there is none comparable unto him. And now look what it says next. Muhammad is the messenger of God. This is the first time we see Muhammad's name introduced on any inscription. And it's introduced at the Dome of the Rock in 691. So take a look at these.
Just let me make a point, Jay. So not only one of their earliest writings is attacking Christian faith, Christian core doctrine, since Islam and Muhammad is undefendable. As the last part you read, Surah 112, can I just express that in the Quranic version of Surah 112, Muhammad is the messenger of God is not there. Just make sure people are aware of it.
Okay. And notice what's the beginning of Surah 112. Look there on the Dome of the Rock. Yeah. There is no God but God. He is one. Where is Muhammad as a messenger of God right after that?
God knows.
So the Shahada is not complete there. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Even on the Dome of the Rock, they have not made a complete Shahada. The Shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. That's the Shahada. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. That means there is only one God but God. Muhammadur Rasulullah, then Muhammad is his messenger or his prophet, has to be part of the Shahada. The Shahada is not complete there. This is an incomplete Shahada. It's introduced on the Dome of the Rock. And what's fascinating to me, this is the problem with the Quran. You will not find the Shahada as a complete form anywhere in the Quran.
So we've got the part where it says, say he is God, which is like Kul huvallahu ahad, Allah Samad part. That is Surah 112. It is finishes like Muhammad is his messenger. It is not part of Surah 112. And the beginning part that there is no God but God, he is one, he has no association, that's not part of Surah 112 either.
So this is all material that has been introduced by the Dome of the Rock, which is not paralleled in the Quran. can you then see that this predates the Quran, yet it is introducing, because what's fascinating is look and see what happens after these inscriptions are put up. Okay? Now, when these inscriptions are put up on the Dome of the Rock, 691, what else does Abdul Malik do? Well, to understand that, you need to go back to another researcher. His name is Yehuda Nevo. And Yehuda Nevo is a researcher at the University of Jerusalem, has done the germinal work on looking at all the inscriptions. And when you look at all the inscriptions from the Arab inscriptions, he did this, he's probably the only one that's done this kind of germinal work. And he did from 650s, 60s, 670s, all the way up until the 680s. And he looked at what they call the Caliphal Protocols. And the Caliphal Protocols are the official documents for the caliphs, the rulers, the Arab rulers at that time. And what he noticed when he looked at all of these protocols, these official documents of the caliphs, there were no reference to Muhammad in any of these caliphal protocols. There was no reference to any people called Muslims in any of these caliphal protocols, though they should be Muslims, because these are all protocols from the Sufyani Umayyad period up until the Marwanid Umayyad period. So these are all Umayyad caliph. These are all Umayyad caliphs from 661 on up. There's no reference to any book called the Quran. There's no reference to any religion called Islam. There's no reference to any city called Mecca in any of these protocols. What's more, when he looked at the Bismillah al-Rahman al-Rahim, when he looked at that, it's not the same Bismillah that we use today in Islam. This he noticed all the way up until 691. And when he got to the Caliphal Protocols in 691, the protocols written by Abdul Malik in 691, suddenly, overnight, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah is introduced. The Shahada is introduced into that protocol. That's the first time we see it. Bismillah al-Rahman al-Rahim is introduced. The Bismillah, as we see in the Quran today, is introduced on those protocols. So here you have Abdul Malik introducing it on the Dome of the Rock. He then introduces it also on the protocols in the same year, in 691. He's introducing his prophet. He's denigrating the Christians' God, Jesus, confronts the Trinity, confronts Jesus' divinity, confronts his sonship, and confronts his begottenness. And while he confronts that, he then introduces his man, Muhammad, the messenger of God, on the Dome of the Rock. You're right. It's not in Surah 112 in the Quran. That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother problem that we're going to get into in another live stream. Why is it the Quran does not have the same verses that we see on the Dome of the Rock? We'll get into that at another time. What's also interesting is, now that he's got it on the building, he's now got it in the protocols. What does he do next? Now we come back to the coins. And that's why in 692 then, he introduces that new coin, the coin that you put up earlier. And that's the coin that Abdul Malik introduces in 692. If you could put that up.
Okay, just a moment, Jay. I just find my picture regarding the Alaska Mosque. Do you still want to see it? Yes, you are correct. I was wrong.
About the Dome of the Chain?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't need to look. Just beware. I was wrong. You were correct.
Okay, so that they're all facing Petra. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
Sorry, what,
okay, now
what did you want to see?
Now I want to go back to slide number 15. Which is the slide of Abdul Malik, 692 afterwards. This is where the Shahada is introduced, in 692.
Yeah.
Okay, you got it up there?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the slide I want you to look at. Now take a look at those coins. On the front side, you will see the Shahada. There's the Shahada. If anybody speaks Arabic, you can see that's the Shahada. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So there's only one God but God, and that Muhammad is his messenger. That's on the front side. What's on the back side? You know what's on the back side? Well, I've got it there on, if you look on the slide, or you didn't put the whole slide up. On the reverse side, first of all, they've taken off the cross, right? They've taken off the pedestal. On the front side, they've taken off Abdul Malik's, he has taken off his image. No more images. That's why I'm suggesting that maybe this problem with iconoclasm was introduced by Abdul Malik. I don't know. All we know is that he's no longer used images, and none of the caliphs used images after that.
Yeah, so
All of it went to script.
I'm just
It
putting
went to
them.
Arabic
I'm
script.
just trying to put them together so people can kind of compare them.
If you could put up the whole slide number 16 and just put it on, that kind of has the whole story right there. Slide number 16 has everything in on one slide. Okay, I see you putting up the Malik's image first. That's the front side, and there you can see the pedestal of the Byzantine cross. Then you can see the pole from the Byzantine cross, but no crosspiece. And then you can see Abdul Malik, and then you can see what Abdul Malik has done next. He's taken off his image and he's put up the Shahada, and he's taken off the pedestal. On the back side is Surah 112. Here is Surah 112, where Muhammad is introduced. God has no, he is against, there is no, he does not beget, nor is he begotten, and Muhammad is the prophet of God. So it confronts the person of Jesus Christ, the God of Christianity, and it introduces their prophet. So here you can see this is a concerted effort by Abdul Malik to not only bring Arabic as the lingua franca for the whole region, but to then take off the images and introduce the Shahada. There's only one God but God. Muhammad is his prophet. And then you have Surah 112, where there is now God, for it attacks the sonship of Jesus Christ. He is not begotten, nor is begotten, nor is begetteth. And Muhammad is the messenger of God. Introducing those two pieces, which are both found on the Dome of the Rock, not in the same sequence. So this is a year later. So what's Abdul Malik doing? He is now introducing his prophet. But in order to have a prophet, then you need to have a book. Am I correct?
Yeah, and then we get the Quran.
Well, we don't get the Quran right away. You would think we would get the Quran right away. But then we get all kinds of fragments. And we get all kinds of different manuscripts and different fragments. And we're going to get into that in another live stream, because this is a whole new problem when you look at the Quran, because the Quran is not at one point. When we look at the Sana manuscript, you and I did this earlier. Look at the Sana manuscript, which is the earliest manuscript that is, and again, it's only 19% of the Quran, 19 to 22% of the Quran. It's a very small portion of the Quran, and it is dated to 705, the upper layer. But remember, it's a palimpsest. There's a lower layer, and the lower layer has 70 verses. Sorry, has 63 verses with 70 differences, 70 variants from within those 63 verses. And that is not the same Quran that is on the upper layer. Now, most scholars were still doing an awful lot of work. Some scholars want to date the lower layer to the time of Uthman, where I would suggest you better be careful about you can't date ink. So I don't know how they came to that conclusion. But they do know that the upper layer would be around 705, the beginning of the 8th century. The lower layer is probably, I would say it's probably within the last 2 decades of the 7th century. So around the time of Abdul Malik. That would be the beginning of the Quran, because once you have the man, then you've got to have a book. And you can see that's where you start to see the Quran being put together. But even as they're putting it together, they're not in any way is the Quran that we have today. Because then all of a sudden there's a proliferation of Qurans, and this happens after his son Abdul Malik, Al-Walid, Abdul Malik's son Al-Walid comes to power in 705, and he rules from 705 to 715, and you start seeing a proliferation of Qurans, and that's why, bless their hearts, the Muslims on Islamic Awareness website have put up 63 different fragments that they claim are before 719. Remember we confronted that at Speaker's Corner back in September. Remember when we did that?
Yeah.
And we looked at 63 fragments. I'm not ready to divulge what we now know about those 63 fragments. I don't say any more than that. But we pretty much can confront that notion that any of them are before 719. That's all I can say right now, because that's a whole nother area of study that I'm going to be introducing in the next few weeks.
So
but can you see? Go ahead.
Let me just kind of try to put those coins together. There is no coin as representative of Islam from the time of Muhammad, even though Muhammad conquered and took the life of other people and take their land. There is no coin regarding Islam, core of Islam, from time of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman. By the time of Uthman, Islam was already in Azerbaijan and in North Africa and what is that other country? Spain part of the world.
Andalusia.
Still, we don't have any coin represents Islam fully. And then we've got this guy called Abdul Malik. We first see his coin with his sword, which shows Islam is the religion of peace. And then soon after that, images is all gone. Suddenly we've got Shahada plus Surah 112.
Okay, may I back up and just say two things?
Yeah.
It stands to reason, and Muslims will come back to you, and they have a right to say this. It stands to reason that when Islam was first beginning, they would not have coins because they really didn't have an infrastructure then. They were still conquering. And as a result, and you know this happens with any large conquest. Conquests do not have coins to begin with. So they have to use the coins that existed. So they would have used drachmas. However, you cannot say this after 661, because by 661, the first Arab coins are introduced. Those are the ones we showed. If you put up slide number 16, just put up the whole slide there like you did earlier. Put up the PowerPoint and put up that slide. Everything is in sequence right there on slide 16. Because there you will see, Hatun, that you've got the Arabs finally introducing their coins by 661, which would make sense because they've been in power now for about 20 years. And they have now outstretched, they now need to have a coin to represent them. They've been using drachmas earlier than that. But if this is the first coin that they're introducing, why in the world don't they have Muhammad's image on it? Since they don't have a problem with image at this time.
So I would say you are being very generous because Muslims have a time to take people slaves. Muslims have a time to rape women in front of their husbands. Muslims have a time to get rid of the other people of other faith. Yet they didn't have time to put together their own coin.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you. That is true. But we are arguing from an argument of silence. What is interesting is with the Sufyani coins in 661, there's no longer any silence because now we have coins to show that these are the first Arabs. These are the first Arab coins we can find. And what do they show? That's what's disturbing. So this is not an argument of silence anymore. Now we're arguing from an argument of historicity because the coins, you can see them. They're right there. Look at them on the upper left-hand side. Sorry, the bottom left-hand side. The bottom left-hand side, when you look at them, those are the Sufyani coins. They're introduced in 661. Very similar to the coins right above them, which are the Byzantine dinar, early to mid 7th century, up until 661. 661, no longer can Muslims say, yeah, but we didn't have coinage at this time. Yes, you do. You have coins. Take a look at them. And there are images. And you have the back side, a half of a Byzantine cross. Then let's go to the upper right-hand corner, and you will see there is the first coins by Abdul Malik, introduced in 685 when he comes to power, to show that he's now in power. And those coins have a sword. You're right. There's his image. He's all by himself. He doesn't have any retainers. He just wants himself to be there because he was a very powerful man. And this is well known about Abdul Malik. He is known as the great Arab reformer. What does he do? He then introduced the Arabic language as the international language. And what does he most significantly do? He builds the Dome of the Rock, changes the protocols, and then that's done in 691. And then in 692, he then introduces those coins. And those are the coins that are hugely significant. The British Museum did not pay attention to this very quickly. They didn't even understand this. And I don't think anybody in the British Museum knows what we know. And this is why there needs to be a critical assessment of how Islam began. If you just want to follow the coins, you can see that there's a problem here. Because I can understand that the Muslims will say, well, that's an argument of silence. Of course, we didn't have coins that early, but you do have coins by 661. And Abdul Malik's coins are well docketed there, and they're right there in the British Museum. We've got them up there on the slide right now. And look and see what he does in 692. He introduces the Shahada, and he introduces Muhammad, and he introduces an attack against the Son of God, Jesus as Son of God. So this is very significant when you look at not only the theological battle that's going on, the political battle that's going on. The political battle that the Umayyads are doing with Abdul Malik, that's why he builds the Dome of the Rock right there in Jerusalem, above the Church of the Sepulchre. And that's why from then on out, once you have the prophet, then he has to start, of course, creating a revelation. And that's the problem of the revelation. Now, I want to do one more thing before we move on. Are we ready to move on, or are we going to still... You want to unpack any more of this?
We can move on.
Can you go to slide number 18 and put that up?
I'm not sure if I'm happy for you to move me around with the slides, Jay.
It's right there. You've got it already up there. Just go down to 18 now and just move that one up there.
I'm just very generous today.
Okay, I know I'm causing you an awful lot of hassle, an awful lot of problems, but if you can go up to slide number 18, I want to bring up one more problem, because this is something that I think is hugely significant. Now, that's slide number 16. I want number 18.
No, that's 18.
That right there. Take a look at that. I see Bart Carnley. Surely Muhammad or Allah isn't mentioned until after 691.
Oh,
that's correct.
Sorry, I can't get rid of that now. But you are able to see the slide?
And people see that slide number 18?
Yeah.
Mark Carnley's comment is in front of it, but that's okay. We can still see the bottom of it. I want you to look at that. I want you to look at that slide there. Remember, the dirham is introduced in 661, right? We've already covered that. There was no dirham before 661. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
And the reason why there's no dirham before 661 is there's no need for a dirham before 661, because the drachmas were used, the Byzantine drachma, and earlier the Sassanian drachma. They just used whatever coins they had to hand. They were not a strong enough empire. The empire, the Umayyad Caliphate, really created an empire and was able to then control the commerce by 661 with the Sufyani family. That's why the dirham then became the equivalent to the drachma. The dirham would be the Arab equivalent. And they introduced their own coins with their images on it. Okay? Am I correct?
Yeah. Like,
so this
is what we are putting from the history what we have.
Okay. Now I want you to open up to chapter 12, verse 20 of the Quran. Take out your Quran and read Surah 12, verse 20.
I didn't hear the please, but I will read it.
You go ahead and read it. Chapter 12, verse 20. This is the story of Joseph. Chapter 12 is all about Joseph. He's been sold by his brothers, right, to the Egyptians. Look and see what verse 20 it says.
And they sold him for a reduced price, a few drams, and they were concerning him of those content with the little.
Okay, so they sold them for what? How many? What did they sell them for? A few what?
A few drams.
Dirhams.
Yeah.
Okay, right there. Is there a problem with that?
Oh, well, Joseph is around 1800 BC, and the drams we looked at 661. I don't know, like there is huge timeline between them, Jay.
That's the first problem. There would be no dirhams at the time of Joseph. Okay, well, that's not a big problem. We can just say that they were trying to contextualize. They're trying to use a coin that existed at the time when Muhammad was writing.
No.
So that's why he used the dirham.
No, excuse me. That wouldn't work, Jay, because this is all-wise and all-knowing Allah is talking. Did Allah forget what he did to Joseph?
Okay. A few dirham counted out. What do you do with counted? What does counted out mean? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. They're coins. That means you count out coins, right?
Yeah.
Were there any coins in existence in 1800 BC? No.
I would say no.
No coins existed in 1800 BC. Coins had not yet been invented. The coins were invented by the Lydians in the 600 BC. That's 1200 years later.
So are you trying to tell me Allah got two things wrong? Not only what Allah sold for Joseph, and Allah forget to give us the right accountability thing.
Absolutely. This shows me that whoever wrote the Quran did not know what was going on at the time of Joseph in 1800 BC. Obviously, there were no coins that early. So you can't be counting out coins. You can't be counting out anything. Coins were yet to be, any coins anywhere in the world had yet to be invented. Those were only invented by the Lydians. The first ones to ever use coins were by Lydians. Hold on, wait. What about the Bible? Does the Bible make this mistake?
Shekels?
Open up the Bible to Genesis chapter 37, verse 28. Let's see what the Bible does. Same story. Genesis.
Are you able to find it? My Bible is not with me, sorry.
Oh, you have a Quran, but you don't have a Bible.
No, because
Okay, well, let's do it. I've got Genesis chapter 37, verse 28. Let me read it to you. This is the story of Joseph being sold by his brothers to the Midianites, not the Egyptians, the Midianites. Interestingly, the Bible gets the right people. Egyptians would have not been where Joseph was or his brothers were. So that's interesting. So not only does it got the Egyptians wrong, it was the Midianites. The Midianites are just to the west of the Nabatean era. They are over what is today in the Negev desert of Israel. That's where the Midianites come from. That's where Joseph was being sold, to the Midianites, not the Egyptians. The Bible gets the right people. The Quran gets the wrong people. Let's continue on. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. The Midianites are the Ishmaelites. Ooh, 20 shekels. Now you might say, hold on a minute. Aha, the Bible's got the same problem. 20 shekels, that's a coin. No, it is not. A shekel is not a coin. A shekel is a weighted measure. 20 shekels is equivalent to 0.2 kilograms of silver. Hold on a minute. It even gets better than that, Hatun. Not only does the Bible get the right currency, get the right people, it gets the right price for a slave in 1800 BC because of the Nuzi tablets and because of the Mari tablets that we have now discovered, of which are part of our museum tour that we have in the British Museum. Because when you look at the price of a slave in the 1800 BC, the beginning of the second millennia, the price of a slave is around 0.2 kilograms of a silver, which means not only does the Bible get the right currency, it gets the right price of the slave. Ooh, I love my Bible. And we've not even asked the Bible to be correct on that. So can you see in this case, now remember, Moses, who wrote the books of Moses, was not living in 1800 BC. He would not have known about the price of slaves in 1800 BC. How did Moses get the right price of slave? How did he get the right currency? And how is it that we not only do we get the right currency, this is not a coin. These are not coins. The shekels were weighted measure. That's how they traded back in those days. They used weighted measures. They used weighted measures of silver, weighted measures of gold, weighted measures of precious stones. And that's why not only has the Bible got the right name, it's got the right denomination, and it's got the right price. That's why my Bible is so historically accurate. The Quran, however, is not. The Quran has got a coin, and in fact that it's even mentioning a coin is a problem in and of itself. The fact that it's got the wrong people that the brothers are selling Joseph to. But it gets even better than that. Here's where the counting, and this is what really gets me excited. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Who is writing, supposedly, who is writing, or who is receiving the Quran? Who is the one that receives the Quran?
Muhammad.
So this verse would have been existent while Muhammad was living, right?
Yes.
And would have been completed before Muhammad died, am I correct?
Yeah.
And Muhammad died in 632, am I correct?
Yeah, and dirhams were 661.
Ah, dirhams didn't even exist in 632. So even if he had wanted to contextualize it, even if he was trying to use a coin that the people to understand at that time, it would have made no sense to have the word dirham, which is in the Arabic, there in chapter 12, verse 20, in a book that was finished in 632 when Muhammad died. If, of course, the book was finished in 632. which means chapter 12, verse 20 had to be written after 661. Am I correct?
Yeah, just let me just make a comment. Someone was asking if the word dirham has been used in Surah 12, verse 20. I'm looking at the Arabic word by word. Darahima, which has been translated as drums, yes, it has been used in Arabic. And it has been translated as drum as well.
I'm going to show it. I'm going to point to it. It's right there where my finger is at. There's the darama. Can you see it in the Arabic? Those who can read Arabic.
They can't
That is
see.
darama, where my
Okay.
finger is pointing. Darhama, right there. I've underlined it with green. Put it as big as I can make it. Can you see in the Arabic? I'm going to hold it as steady as I can. That's the Arabic. For anybody that can read Arabic, you will see the word darhama is in the Arabic. Now, I am aware of the fact that Muslims are going to have a problem with this. And every time I brought this up, Muslims don't know how to answer this. There were no darhamas prior to 661. There were drachmas, but the drachma is not an Arabic word. Dirham is an Arabic word. The dirham is what is supposedly what was there when Muhammad, before Muhammad died. Oh, even more than that, the dirham would be the eternal word of God, right? So the dirham should have also been there in the eternal tablets. Are you showing the dirham there?
Yeah.
Can you just point to it? I'm
Um,
just looking.
I can't point. I don't know how to point it, but like it's, you can see it's on the
It's the
fourth.
second one. Don't just. It's the third one down from the top.
Yeah.
Darhama. Can you all see it there? Darhama. You start from the right, the da, the ra, the him, and the mim. Starting from the right, going to the left. There's the fatah, and then you can see the fatah and the three fatahs on darhama. And there's the sukun for the dar. So that's where you can see that that is the word. The word is in Arabic. You cannot take it out. You cannot change it. Which means that this could not have been written while Muhammad was living. Proving once again that the Quran must have been a much later edition. It had to have been written after 661 in order to have that word in there. Let me just give you an example. If I, in 1960, I like your pair of glasses that you have on, Hatun. I like to buy those pair of glasses, or I'd like to sell it to you. Let's say back in 1960, I wanted to sell that to you for 200 euros. Would that make any sense if I were to write that I wanted to sell that to you for 200 euros in 1960?
First of all, I need to be alive in 1960s. Secondly, did they have like euros in those times? And that
There were no
much euro
euros in
was like too
1960.
much money, I guess.
So if I wrote a story about us back in the 1960s and I buy a pair of glasses for you for 200 euros, anybody who reads that will say, scratch it and say, hold on a minute, how could Jay have sold Hatun her glasses for 200 euros in 1960 when those were not, there were no euros around at that time? That's too early. This is the same problem. You can't have,
And
first of
I
all,
wasn't around as well. It's not only euros, I wasn't around as well.
okay, well, I'm sorry. I should have used a date a little bit later. But you were around when well, I can't remember when euros were finally invented. I think it was 25 years ago. You're older than 25. When you were 7 years old, the euros were invented when Europe became an entity. European Union was introduced. So that's the problem with the dirham. The dirham could not have existed at the time of Joseph. It could not have existed at the time of Muhammad. It could have only existed after 661. Not only have they got the wrong denomination, they got the wrong currency, they got the wrong coinage. On top of that, they've got the wrong word. Oh, I love it. And that's why when I look at the Quran, I can see that this is a book that has been written much later and redacted back to Muhammad, because this is just another case in point. This is a historical anachronism, a glaring historical anachronism. I hope that helps you with the coins.
So someone is making a comment. Why should they believe in you since you are not even Muslim? Regarding the conversation we had, coins as well as the direction of the prayer, Jay.
Please don't. And you could we could be lying. We could be making this up as we go along. In fact, we've just wasted about an hour and 15 minutes if we have. If you don't believe me, then go to the numismatic section and go and look it for yourself. Look and see. In fact, go to the British Museum and go to these two galleries and just look at what they get. Look at the dates they give to that coin. Look at the dates they give to the Sufyani coin. Look, and you'll see it's 661. I'm not making this up. You were right with me, were you not, Hatun? You saw the dates at the British Museum. The dates are correct. I'm not disputing the dates. No one does dispute those dates because those coins were introduced. They have the dates on them. They don't call it 661. That's the Gregorian calendar. We look at, and they probably use the dates for that. The Sufyanis and the Umayyads would have their own dating methods. But of course, no one disputes the fact that the 661, which is the Gregorian calendar, that's the date that coin was introduced. No one disputes the fact that in 685, Abdul Malik's coin was introduced. That's not in dispute. And please, we could be lying. You're correct. And because of the fact I'm not a Muslim, this has nothing to do with Islam. Have you noticed? I'm sorry. It does. You don't have to be a Muslim or a Christian or anybody to make this discussion. This is a historical discussion. We're talking about objects. We're talking about artifacts that have dates on them, that have names on them, that have references to them. This is why it's important that you don't just sit there and say, "I can't trust you because you're not a Muslim." It's the fact that Muslims have not done this homework. Show me one Muslim that has even looked at these coins. Give me a name. Show me any work that's been done on these coins by Muslims, and show me any Muslim that has even noticed that the dirham should not be in chapter 12, verse 20. Show me anybody that's written this. I wish Muslims would be self-critical.
So
I wish they would be as self-critical as we are.
I think the issue is when it comes to the Quranic manuscripts, Quran has been in the hands of Muslims probably since they were written. Or like verse scenario, the Topkapı Musaf has been in Topkapı in Istanbul since 1811, like over 100 years ago.
1811.
And yeah, so that was the date it was passed to the Topkapı. It's been there over 100 years.
108 years it's been in Istanbul.
And when did we get the Altı Kulaç's writings? 2007. So
up till 2002, no one had done a study of it.
Yeah, so it has been in their hands, and no one even bothered to explain what is inside. Informations have been in the hands of Muslims, and in the mosques, you've been lied to. Coins, they didn't turn up maybe they turned up to the British Museum a couple of months ago, but they were in the hands of Muslims, and they were accessible. But none of you bother to explain the humanity, historical mistakes Islam makes. Same for the mosques. They've been built from the time of Muhammad, but none of you bother to explain the humanity. Oh, actually, apparently headquarter of Islam, or the direction of the prayer, was Petra. So because your imams, your sheikhs, your dawa gangs are lying to you, therefore Christians, Jay is very busy over there, but he's making time to put things together for you. It's up to you. You can use the brain Allah give it to you, and then say, oh, why, like if I was Muslim, all I would do is I would go to my imam and then say, why have you been lying to me? Here's the historical evidence, and I am hearing this from Christians. Just go and question your imam. And what he's going to do, he's going to give you the unpacking of the Surah 5 verse 110. You can't question, therefore life is happily after.
Hatun, I think you're bringing up a problem that has existed, I think, in Islam, uniquely in Islam. I don't know of any other faith or any other religion that is not self-critical. I have yet to see Islam being self-critical. What we are using today is redacted criticism and source criticism. Where do you think redacted criticism and source criticism were created? They were created on this book here, the Bible. Redacted criticism, source criticism, historical criticism, literary criticism, all these criticisms that we now use all over the world on many different documents were all begun in the 1800s by criticizing this book. Christians were the ones who did it. These were not non-Christians. Wellhausen and many others, they were all Christians who were criticizing and doing great criticism. They were asking very good historical questions. They asked questions of whether or not Abraham even existed. How could there be writing at the time of Moses in 1400 BC? There was no writing that early. They were asking, where are these cities called Sodom and Gomorrah? Where is the city called Ur? They were asking very good historical questions. They pretty much said that we can throw out the first 11 chapters of Genesis because there's no historical support for any of this person, especially the person of Abraham or somebody living in Euphrates coming to Canaan. So these were all very good questions, but they were Christians that were asking them. And by 1905, it really decimated the church all over Europe. The European church has not recovered since then. Since 1905, we've gone back and we've looked and researched, and we've gone back to, we found the Mari tablets, we found the Nuzi tablets, we found the Ebla tablets, we found the Amarna tablets, these four genre of tablets, which now supported the whole story of Abraham, showing that we've got the right man at the right place, doing the right customs, even at the right time. And some of these customs went out of date by 1600 BC. There's no way that Moses, writing in 1400 BC, could have even known of these customs. How did he get it so correct? So proving that the Bible has gone through that test. But it was Christians who were the ones that were testing the Bible. Now, show me a Muslim that's done the same type of criticism against the Quran. Show me a Muslim that's asked the questions we've asked today about these coins. Why is it when Hatun asked me to come to the British Museum, she wanted me to look at these coins because she knew immediately by just walking into that one gallery that there are some problems with what the British Museum was saying. The dates were not wrong. The significance of those dates was the problem. She saw immediately, how can you have images on coins in 661 in a Muslim caliphate? And what about Abdul Malik? If he is one of the greatest of the Islamic Muslim caliphs, what's he doing with his image on there? And what in the world, how is it that the Shahada is introduced at this date, 692, and no one's paying attention? Now, why is it that Hatun noticed this and no one else has noticed that? And she brought me along to look at it. I gave her explain, and that's why we're having this live stream today. She said, Jay, we've got to unpack this. You've got to help us with this. Because listen, I noticed this. We noticed this way back in the 1990s. This is not new to me. We first noticed this when we went to the numismatic section of the British Museum, and we saw these coins in sequence, and we saw the images. And so I knew this way back in 1994. 1994, we're talking about 25 years ago, I've known about this problem. But how is it that I can see this, and I'm not even an expert in numismatics? This is not my area of expertise. Why is it that the British Museum, who are supposedly assumed that they have experts on Islam, are putting these coins up there, and they're not even coming up with any significance? They're not even coming up with a problem. They're looking at these coins and they don't even see the significance of what they're looking at. That's why we're having this discussion today. And we'll be having more of these discussions, Hatun. This is not the last we're going to do of this. The fact that almost in every case, when you look at the Quran today, when you look at the work that's going on looking on manuscripts, look at the names of those who are doing the work on the manuscripts. Look at the ones who are dating them. None of them, in fact, almost none of them are Muslim names. They are all European names. They're Americans. These are not necessarily, almost all of them are not Christians. None of them have any religion. But they are all experts in their field. They are all linguists, most of them. They have to be. They have to know these languages. I remember when I went to Dr. Patricia Corona in Cambridge when I did my first debate in 1995. Look at the date, 1995. That's almost 25 years ago when I first debated Jamal Badawi on the problem with Mecca. I gave 10 historical challenges. Dr. Patricia Corona was the one. I used all her material. Dr. Patricia Corona reads and writes 15 languages. What in the world? Can you show me any Muslim that reads and writes 15 languages? And she is the one that has gone to the very place where Islam was birthed and asked some of the most damaging questions that have yet to be answered, especially questions concerning Mecca. She is the first one to find the first reference to the city of Mecca in 741. How can no one else have known that? Why is it Muslims didn't know that? You remember when you had your discussion with Dan Gibson just 2 weeks ago? Remember the question you asked him about Mecca? And he talked about going and seeing these Muslim scholars who came from Mecca. He had a discussion with them, and he asked them a simple question. Can you tell me, Have you found anything in Mecca? You're the archaeologists. You're the ones that are digging in the ground. All these big skyscrapers that are being dug, they're having to dig into the ground to build the foundations. Aren't you there watching when they build the foundation? Aren't they bringing things up? Because when you dig down to build foundations, you start coming across artifacts. That's why archaeologists always come to big buildings when their big skyscrapers are being built. And what was their answer? Do you remember what he said?
There is nothing there.
The only thing they could find was a Turkish fort, an old Turkish fort from the Ottoman period. Nothing exists outside of this Turkish fort.
But
That's from the 1400s.
Jay, that shows how powerful Turkish Ottoman Empire was. We loved living life, sharing life with people. We went their land and then we left evidence that we've been there.
I just love it. Now, listen, we're going to have to do a whole nother live stream on what Dan Gibson has now found about all of the. I love what he has found. If you look at his videos, he's come up now and he can now show that every one of the stations of the Hajj, the stations, the Muzdalifah, the Safa and Marwa, the running back and forth between these two hills, the ablution ponds, the cisterns, even the cisterns where the water comes from, even the Kaaba itself are the right dimensions. Everything that you can find, even the Jamarats where they throw the 49 stones, the 72 stones of the Jamarats, that every one of them can be found in Petra. And what's more, the dimensions are exactly like what they find in the later traditions, which do not parallel the Kaaba that we have today. Ooh, I love it. We're going to have to do a whole nother live stream just on this new material that he's come up with.
So, what we have is, when you try to compare Islam with history, remember Islam is a very powerful religion which has been followed by 1.8 billion, and it is apparently so truth. Yet when you compare that with history just crushes it. We can't even find anything linked with Islam in the history. That's the sad reality of tonight.
Hatun, it's been great doing this with you. We've taken about an hour and a half to go through the coins. I would love to do a live stream looking at what we now know about Petra and what we now know about Mecca. I would like to look at the Meccan, the inscription, the Meccan inscription.
Yep.
That points to. This is exciting. To me, this is one of the most exciting things. That points to 697. That the Masjid al-Haram was built in 697. Oh, look at the date. That the Masjid al-Haram was not built to 697, and the reason why it was built. These are things we need to unpack, we need to discuss. But before we do that, we need to get the images of all of this, and I'll send them to you. So we need to do another live stream. We need to look at also the black rock. We need to start looking at the significance of the black stone. Yeah. That comes, we need to look at the significance of Ibn Zubayr. All of this needs to be unpacked. There's so much new material here, Hatun, that we're going to have to do a number of live streams on this.
We can do one just before Christmas.
We can do one just before Christmas, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get with you and we'll announce each other. But can you see, just with these coins, can you now see how Islam is being formed? You can follow the evolution of Islam with these coins.
Jay, I can see it. But the issue is, after it's 10:30 here, up to this time, Muslims are still being lied and lied and lied. The question is, when are they going to take off their sunglasses and see? That's the question. If you see
listen,
it, go to your sheikhs, go to your dawa gangs, and then get out Islam as soon as you can.
If you want to ask, if you notice what Hatun and I have been doing, and the question that came up, how can we trust you? You're not a Muslim. Can you notice that everything that we have used today, we're not speaking as a Christian. This is not a Christian polemic. Have we talked about, except looking at Genesis 37, verse 28, and comparing the story of Joseph with Surah 12, ayah 20? That's the only time we did a comparison with the Bible. Am I correct today?
Yeah.
We've only looked at that comparison, and that's a significant comparison because it's a historical comparison. Everything we've said about these coins is a historical argument. Remember, the historical argument is the best argument you can use because it is absolutely neutral. Anybody can look at what we're looking at. Anybody can see if we're lying. Please do. Anybody can look at the coins, go to the gallery, go in the numismatic sections, go up online, and just look at the earliest Arab coins. I'm not saying Muslim coins, I'm saying Arab coins, the Sufyani coins, the Byzantine Drachma before that, and then especially look at Abd al-Malik. We're going to keep on coming back to Abd al-Malik. Abd al-Malik is a kingpin. We're going to keep coming back to this. But what we're saying and everything that we have done, and this is why I've said to many Muslims, the Achilles heel of Islam is the historical problems, are the historical problems. I believe that it is these kinds of questions, not just on the coins, the problem with Mecca, the problem with Petra, the problem with the Qibla, the problem with the Quran, the problem with the manuscripts, the problem with the fragments, the problem with almost everything that we have been bringing up in the last 2 years. In every case, these are neutral problems. These are historical problems. And in order for any religion to be able to be classified as a truth, a religion of truth, it has to pass the historical test. Only Christianity has passed that historical test. Only the Bible has been attacked for 200 years on every one of these criticisms: redacted, source, literary, historical criticism, the documentary hypothesis, you name it. We have been attacked and attacked and attacked. And to date, remember what Dr. Nelson Gluck said, there is not one artifact anywhere in the world that controverts a properly understood biblical statement. No other book can make that claim but the Bible. So we as Christians understand best why historical criticism is so devastating. We understand how it devastated the Bible up till 1905. Now we're in 2019. It's no longer devastating the Bible. In fact, I love historical criticism. And the more attacks we get, the more we can answer them. That's why you do the Bible tour of the British Museum. And anybody that wants to go to the British Museum with Hatun, go with her, because she'll take you and show you all these artifacts from the Assyrian period, from the Babylonian period, from the Persian period that supports the Bible in the British Museum. God bless the British for stealing it all and putting it into one building. And you can do that. And you are doing still tours on it, are you not, Hatun?
Yeah. Yes.
Beth Grove is also doing tours on it, and I know others are doing it. I think Sarah Lumger is also doing tours on it. So these are people that are in Britain, that are in London, who will do these tours. I am now putting a tour together of the Museum of the Bible here in Washington, looking at the same artifacts. They've got almost exact same artifacts that you have in the British Museum. They brought it to Washington, D.C., and they put it in the Museum of the Bible. And now we have a 45-minute tour. It's almost an hour-long tour that looks at all these artifacts that supports the Bible. That kind of tour is not being done on the Quran, because that kind of tour cannot be done on the Quran, because we don't find artifacts that support the Quran. In fact, we find just the opposite. And that's why Muslims, if you're listening to us, you're going to have to come up with a better response. You can't just sit there and attack us. Don't just say we're not right. This is not right because we're not Muslims, therefore we can't ask these questions. The only ones who are asking these questions are non-Muslims. Where are the Muslims asking these questions? Where are the Muslims doing this kind of research? Why is it we can't find any Muslims who are critiquing this book? They dare not do it, because if you were to do it, you would not live very long. This is the only area of study that I know where what you find and what you say publicly can kill you. We don't kill people for criticizing the Bible.
Because
we do not kill
the religion
people.
of peace.
It is not a religion of peace. I know you love to say that, Hatun, and you keep on drilling it into our heads. You're trying to persuade us, but you do it tongue-in-cheek. I know you're doing it facetiously, and God bless you for trying. But you're never going to persuade anybody, because the more you say it, the more we find it is anything but the religion of peace. But Henry, folks, please come back to a book that has gone through the test. Come back to a book that does stand to every historical critique. Come back to the book that points to one man. And who's that man? His name is Jesus Christ. And we always end with Jesus Christ. Every live stream we do, we want to end with him. Because here's what this book is all about. It's all about Jesus. It's all about him. And we always want to talk about him, because he is worthy to not only be worshipped, he is worthy to be praised because of what he did on the cross 2,000 years ago. That also can be historically validated. And I thank God that we can validate the crucifixion. We can validate the resurrection. Because if he did not die, he did not rise again, I'm damned and so is everybody else. And I don't want to be damned. I want to go to heaven. I want to be with God again. And the only way I can do that is if God have forgiven my sins for me. Come on home, Muslims. And any one of you who are skeptical, please come on home to the Bible. We love to have you. It's love to be able to talk with you. We'll continue with these live streams, and we'll be unpacking more areas, always we're going to the historical areas because no one else is doing this. Notice Hatun at DCCI, myself with Fander Films, Al Fadi with Sira International, Sam Shamunian with Shamunian is doing it. David Wood is starting to do it, and we're starting finally to get a few others who are starting to come on who are starting to come into the historical critique. We need to get more of you who are doing the historical critique because this is what I think is going to bring more Muslims to Christ than anything else.
Jay, thank you for joining us on the live stream, especially taking time from your work. And thank you very much for those of you who joined us in the chat. If you had a burning question that you wrote it but we skipped it or we didn't reply, feel free to drop email to info@dcciministries.com and then we can arrange something to deal with your question. Thank you very much to admin for controlling the chat, and we will see you at Speaker's Corner or in heaven or around. Jay, once again, thank you very much. I'll see you next week.
Okay. Thank you. God bless you, Hatun. It's been great being with you. We'll do it again. And next time, we'll have a whole nother area to talk about.
Thank you.
Until then, God bless you, everybody.